Rights Association membership of dead bodies that frankly are not the kind of thing that any of us want to look at, but it is the reality of what these human smugglers are doing to the migrants that they bring across the border into the United States. Unfortunately, Texas and the Rio Grande Valley has to bear the burden and the expense of this failure of policy at the federal level. And what that means is everything from the Department of Public Safety to the National Guard to our local communities here in the Rio Grande Valley to local law enforcement, the local hospitals, you name it, they have to bear the burden of the failure of policy at the federal level. This is a policy that they did not create, and they don't have the authority to fix. Now, I applaud Governor Abbott for doing what he can using the authorities that he has, and I appreciate the fact that Texas has stepped up to try to fill the void left by this failure at the federal level. You know what amazes me the most is, as shocking as the circumstances and facts are here at the border, that the Biden administration simply does not seem to care. They don't care about the 3 million migrants encountered at the border during the last year and a half. They apparently don't care about the young women and girls who are sexually assaulted en route. They apparently don't care about the migrants who die in places like Brooks County trying to circumvent the Falfurrias checkpoint. They simply don't seem to care. They certainly don't care about South Texas and the Rio Grande Valley, and they don't care about the great state of Texas. So I'm delighted that Ted and I could be here with our colleagues from different parts of the country who you'll have a chance to hear from here. I think it gives us a lot of important stories and facts to be able to use to fight the fight we need to fight. We cannot accept this as the new normal in Texas or in America for that reason. This is a battle that we did not ask for, but we must fight and we must win. I'll turn it over to my friend, Senator Cruz.
Thank you, John. This is the second time in just over a year that John Cornyn and I have teamed up to bring a group of our colleagues from the Senate down to the Rio Grande Valley to see firsthand what's happening. The men and women of South Texas, of these communities, know firsthand what is happening, and it is an absolute disaster. It is inhumane. It is horrific. We arrived last night. First thing we did was went out with the Border Patrol Union on a midnight patrol. Within minutes, we began encountering groups of illegal aliens. Didn't take long. First group was 3 teenagers, 2 boys and a girl from Guatemala and Mexico. A few minutes later, we encountered a larger group of about a dozen, mostly women and children. It included among them 2 7-year-old girls, each of whom was an unaccompanied minor. The 2 girls weren't sisters. They didn't have a parent. They didn't have a relative. 2 7-year-old girls who had just gone through a horrific journey with human traffickers. Behind those children on the floor, not far from the banks of the Rio Grande, we saw dozens of wristbands, colored wristbands, that the cartels put on the illegal immigrants to mark how many thousands of dollars those children owe the cartels, to ensure that those kids keep working for the cartels for years to come. This morning we went up in Black Hawk helicopters, touring the border, touring the miles of the river with no wall, with no barrier. We met with landowners, ranchers, farmers, who are understandably furious that they can't be safe on their own property, that their kids can't be safe on their own property. Texans angry. How is it that in my country my own children are not safe? And what is infuriating is this is all deliberate. This is a result of deliberate political decisions from Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. In our nation's history, there's never been a president engaged in a greater dereliction of duty on our border than Joe Biden. He utterly refuses to do his job to enforce the law. We met with the men and women of Border Patrol, and one of the reasons all of us are here is to say thank you to those heroes who risk their lives catching dangerous human traffickers, dangerous drug traffickers, only to have their political superiors turn around and release them all over again. You cannot see what's happening here and not be angry, not be horrified. We heard multiple reports of something, I'll be candid, I had never heard of before until today. Something called a rape tree, which is trees where the traffickers would violently rape young women and then hang their undergarments in the tree as a trophy, mocking law enforcement that there's nothing you can do to stop it. There is something we could do to stop it. We could enforce the damn law. I have a question for our friends in the media. Where are the Democrats? In a year and a half, Joe Biden hasn't bothered to come to the southern border. In a year and a half, Kamala Harris hasn't bothered to come to the Rio Grande Valley. In a year and a half, where are the Democrat senators? They're not here because you can't look at the dead bodies, at the children being assaulted, at the chaos. You can't look at it and defend it. It is wrong and it is immoral. And it needs to stop. And I want to thank our friends from the media who are here, and let me encourage you. The American people need to know what's happening. You know why Joe Biden doesn't come to the Rio Grande Valley? Because he knows if he comes, the TV cameras will follow. And their hope is to hide the human suffering. Just a few weeks ago, over 50 bodies were found dead in a tractor trailer outside of San Antonio. Children as young as 13 died of heat stroke. The Joe Biden body bags keep piling up, and we could stop this if we went back to the policies just a couple of years ago that were working, that had produced the lowest illegal immigration in 45 years. We know how to stop this, but it's a political decision to allow this suffering, and enough is enough is enough. Senator John Barrasso.
I'm John Barrasso, United States Senator from the state of Wyoming. We are here at the southern tip of Texas, the front line in this battle for the border. And the number one reason many of us came, and joined by Senator Cruz and Senator Cornyn, is to thank the Border Patrol agents, the men and women of this nation who put their lives on the line every day to protect our nation, and who are receiving not the help or the thanks that they should be getting from the President of the United States and this administration. The President is quick to condemn them for doing their job, while he refuses to do his job of protecting the border from the invasion that is coming in from this southern border. President Biden has created a crisis in this country, a humanitarian crisis, a criminal crisis, a national security crisis. Ted talked about specific cases, one after another after another. The numbers, the big numbers, are hard to fathom. 3 million encounters with illegal immigrants, probably 1 million more that got away. And it's not just those numbers. It's the amount of drugs that are coming in, weapons, and take a look at the weapons in terms of the confiscation by our agents. It's the drugs that are killing Americans. They talk about the amount of drugs that they were able to seize, but there's a lot of drugs that aren't being seized, and that's why right now the death rate from fentanyl, illegal narcotics in the United States, is at an all-time high.
The number one cause of death in America today for adults under the age of 45 is drug-related, and so much of it fentanyl coming across this southern border from Mexico to the United States. And the money that is coming from this goes to the gangs, goes to the cartels. We talked to the Border Patrol about their budget. The amount of money of budget for the Border Patrol here for the whole year is very small compared to what the cartels are able to make every week through smuggling of drugs and smuggling of people. And yet the Democrats and Joe Biden turn their back, look the other way, refuse to see the tragedy that they are bringing to our country as a result of their policies. Now from Wyoming. Has Wyoming been impacted? Every state has been impacted. All of America is now a sanctuary city. Our death rates in Wyoming from fentanyl has tripled in the last 2 years, and Joe Biden still hasn't been here. He actually hasn't been to the border since 2008, and that was just a drive-by. I would say to the President of the United States, get back to America, show up right here, talk to these border agents, listen to them. They know what we need to do to secure the border. You have an obligation and a responsibility to do that and start today. Senator Johnson.
Thank you, John. I also want to thank Senator Cornyn, Senator Cruz for hosting us. I want to thank all of our hosts. I want to thank the men and women of Customs and Border Protection who are not getting the support that they deserve from this administration. I want to thank the members of the news media that are showing up to cover this. Unfortunately, most of the mainstream media have just turned a blind eye to this travesty. As the former chairman of the Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Government Affairs, I've been down to the border many times. I always learn something new. But I wish I could adequately convey on a personal level to anybody listening to me how profoundly disturbing it is. As Ted described last night, to encounter two little girls, unaccompanied, with just a little piece of paper in a plastic bag with their birth certificate and an address and a phone number that connects them to somebody they know here in this country. Anybody who is a father or a grandfather that has a daughter or a granddaughter, think of a 6 or 7-year-old put in the hands of some of the most evil people on the planet. I had not heard of the rape tree, the panty tree, the taunting tree. Had never heard of that. Our last trip down here, we saw dead bodies floating in the Rio Grande. In my hearings, I've heard of children being sold for $84. How do you think the young women pay off their $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 human trafficking fee? I think we all know. In our briefing a little bit earlier with Customs and Border Protection, just in this sector, they're describing how many encounters they have per week, 23,000. And they calculated that generates for those human traffickers $153 million a week. You just do a simple back of the envelope calculation, that translates to $18.3 billion per year is what the human traffickers are generating in revenue just from the people Border Patrol encounter. Think of all the gotaways. So ever since President Biden entered office and dismantled all the successful programs that had pretty well secured the border, stopped the flow of unaccompanied children, of family units exploiting our laws, actually reduced, we had reduced the number of single adults coming across our border. He dismantled all those programs. I've been saying that his administration is facilitating the multi-billion-dollar business model of some of the most evil people on the planet. And you come down here and you just get a small sense of the deprivations. And it is profoundly disturbing. But let me end by just, and this is available, I've got copies for it, it's available on my website. This is a chart I started back in about 2015 as I was tracking the number of unaccompanied children that turned into a humanitarian crisis under Obama. That's what he called it, with 2,000 people a day. The last couple of months, we've had over 7,700 people per day. Overwhelming Border Patrol, opening up the lanes for the deadly drugs that are impacting and killing Americans in every state of the union, including Wisconsin. But I refer you to this chart because what it shows you is the cause and effect. This didn't just happen. This isn't, boy, isn't Joe Biden unlucky? Open borders, a flood of illegal immigrants, a flood of deadly drugs, 40-year high inflation, record gasoline prices. These things didn't just happen. These are the direct result of his policies. But if you look very closely at this chart, we pretty well have the border solved. That's just another tragedy here. We had this problem fixed until Democrat presidential candidates started talking about the fact they would not deport and they would offer illegal immigrants free health care. So single adult illegal intrusions increased, and then, of course, when Joe Biden became president, he completely opened up the borders. So I call on President Biden, I call on Vice President Harris, I call on Secretary Mayorkas, come down here to the border. You witness these depredations. You experience the profound level of being troubled by what you witness, but you must come here and witness this. Senator Langford.
James Langford, Senator from the state of Oklahoma. For whatever reason, President Biden found the time to get to Saudi Arabia before he found time to get to the Rio Grande Valley. Coming to this area once again, getting a chance to be able to meet with the leadership and people that work the line, CBP and all the federal law enforcement that's here. You see how they put on the uniform every day to be able to protect this great nation. They are our front line of national security, and they're busting their tail to be able to make sure that this front line holds. But the problem that they're dealing with is a set of policies that are intentionally opening up the border so they're being treated more like hotel check-in staff than they are actually than law enforcement. And it's wearing. It's not just wearing on them, it's wearing on the nation. The last several months, we've seen a record number of individuals illegally cross our border. Almost 250,000 a month, month after month after month. That is overwhelming this nation, and it's overwhelming the system. And in the time that we've been here, just in the last few hours, from yesterday and today, interacting with teenagers that are coming across the border, unaccompanied minors that are crossing the border, stopping and talking to a whole group of folks that are coming in, one of them being a couple that she's 8 months pregnant, and then stopping by and seeing an area that's just set up entirely for nothing but people that are pregnant, that are in their late term as they're coming into the country. The frustration of this for Americans is pretty straightforward. The landowners that had the opportunity to be able to meet here all say the same thing. This is the United States of America. Why am I, as an American, not being listened to? Why instead do the rights of people that are not citizens of the United States count more than citizens of the United States and their private property count? Why do individuals that have private property here in the United States ignored and people that are illegally crossing the country are celebrated? Why is that? I have a very simple question for this administration. Do you want to stop illegal immigration? Do you want to? I believe they do not. And I can say it in a couple of ways. One is they know how to be able to stop illegal immigration. They're choosing not to. Number two, in my meetings just this week with administration officials in D.C., they're in the process of designing a new system for asylum. And in their new system for asylum, it is an online sign-up for asylum that you could sign up from asylum from anywhere in the world, and then not only cross the border illegally and request asylum and to be able to come right in, but you could literally come to any airport in America and make the same claim and come in from anywhere in the world. It is clear this administration not only doesn't want to stop illegal immigration, they're trying to accelerate this. They're not working to stop it, they're working to make it more efficient. Americans do not want illegal immigration, they want legal immigration. Americans celebrate and cry at naturalization services and celebrate individuals that legally come into this country. But with good reason, we are frustrated with illegal immigration. Why this administration celebrates illegal rather than celebrates legal, I will never understand. But we're going to continue to come highlight it. And I'm thankful for the folks in the media that are here, because people in my state keep saying to me, things must be getting better at the border because no one in the media is talking about it anymore. So it must be getting better. And I surprised them by saying, actually, the highest number of illegal crossings ever in the history of our country have happened the last 4 months in a row. And they just say, I had no idea, because no one's choosing to tell the story of what's happening in America right now. So we're going to keep telling the story, because this not only should be fixed, it can be fixed. Senator Ernst.
Thank you, everyone. I'm Joni Ernst from the great state of Iowa. Just take I-35 north and you're going to hit us eventually. So every state is a border state. Folks may wonder, why is someone from Iowa coming to our southern border? Every state is a border state. The methamphetamine, the fentanyl that's running up I-35 into communities like Mason City and Des Moines in Iowa, 99% of that, my law enforcement officials say, it's coming right out of Mexico. Okay, it's coming across the border. It's impacting my communities in Iowa, and not in a positive way. So I have been honored to serve my country in a number of different ways. First, as a member of our great Iowa Army National Guard. And in that capacity, I was sworn to uphold and defend our Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I see a lot of domestic issues that we need to face. One of those is right here in Texas. Internationally, we need to face down those cartels. They are impacting you right here in the great state of Texas, and they are affecting everyone else across the United States by destroying families through drug use, substance abuse, violence. So second, I'm a mom. And I visited here several years ago. It was pre-COVID. And we saw a lot of families that were being held in detention, and everybody was decrying how horrible it was. But you know what? Here we are 3-4 years later. It is infinitely worse. And yet I don't hear the outcry anymore from the folks on the left. The policies that are not enforced by this administration has left us in a very dire situation where our national security is at risk. Just over the course of this past year, we've had about 50 individuals that have been identified on the terrorist watch list, or very violent criminals that are coming across our border that have been apprehended. The policies are not being enforced, the laws are not being enforced. So as a mom, I'm appalled when I see these young girls and hear the stories about a 5- and 6-year-old. These girls that were violently raped just a few weeks ago. Where's the outcry from the administration? I spent 3 years working on the Violence Against Women Act. It was a bipartisan bill that was just signed into law by the president. 3 years we worked on that. The president really wanted it done. But does he really care? Does he care about these women and girls that are being trafficked up through Mexico to our very own border, subjected to heinous acts by the cartels and others in these illegal trains? I think not. I think it was a nice bill to have, but I don't think he really believes in it, or he would want to do something about this and not encourage that type of behavior. So, as a soldier, we have to defend our nation, and that means securing our border, and this president has failed at that. Second, as a mom, we need to make sure that we're not encouraging violent, heinous acts against these women and children. And in my new role, 7 years, as a United States Senator, it's up to me to now find ways and solutions to move forward. And that's why we're all here, is to hear directly from our friends in Border Patrol, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, the folks here at DPS, everyone who has been engaged in this fight against illegal migration. And they've given us a lot of great input. But you know, folks, the folks at the very top, they're not here listening. So, yes, we want to thank everyone who's been engaged in this. We've heard a lot of great stories. We've witnessed a lot of really horrible things, too, over the course of the past day. But we need things to change, not just for the great state of Texas, but for every state in this great union, because we're all border states.
I'm Senator John Hoven. I'm from North Dakota. We have a border. We have responsibility for about 900 miles of border on the northern border of our country. And we have some challenges there, but the challenges are very different and nowhere near of the scale of the challenges here. And in fact, resources and personnel, Border Patrol and Customs and Border Protection, are being taken from the northern border to be brought down to try to secure and do more on the southern border, which creates issues on the northern border as well. I want to thank Customs and Border Protection, Brandon Judd, that whole group, Border Patrol, the Texas Department of Public Safety, and also the Texas National Guard, for all you're doing down here. And by the way, there are other guardsmen down here too. I was here just a few months ago over in the Del Rio sector because North Dakota National Guardsmen are down here securing your border. They're not up on our border. They're down here helping secure the southern border because there's such an incredible need for resources. And that's why we're here. I want to thank Senators Cornyn and Cruz, but we 7 senators are here to call attention to the problem. This is an open border. All Americans need to understand this is an open border because of the Biden open border policy. Now they'll tell you, Biden administration, Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas will tell you they're securing the border. The numbers say otherwise. Month of May, 239,000 illegal crossings, migrants crossing illegally. 239,000. We're setting records every month. Oh, by the way, that doesn't include the gotaways. How many gotaways were there? How many more tens of thousands of gotaways do you need to add onto that 239,000? Oh, I guess we don't know. But we know there's a lot more, don't we? And why are they gotaways? Why aren't they turning themselves into Customs and Border Protection at the ports of entry or Border Patrol between them? Because they're smuggling drugs, human trafficking. They have criminal records. That's why. And we don't even know how many are coming in every month. Oh, and it's not just a monthly record, is it? 1.5 million illegal encounters so far this year. We're not done with it. What's it going to be, 2 million? More than 2 million? What's that number going to be? And what's the cumulative number? That's 1 year. What's the impact across our country, in our cities? What's the impact in terms of crime? What's the impact in terms of human trafficking? What's the impact in terms of drugs? As Senator Ernst said, it is a challenge for, these drugs are a challenge for every state. Sure, it's horrible what's going on with the cartels and the coyotes and the human suffering, but it's impacting all of our country now, every state. So we've got to do something about it. And, you know, I was here with Senators Cruz and Cornyn, it was a little over a year ago, and at that time, Customs and Border Protection said there are people coming here illegally from more than 50 countries. And then it wasn't that long ago, I was back, and Customs and Border Patrol said, no, there's people coming here illegally from more than 100 countries. And what do you think they said today? Today, there are people coming here illegally from more than 150 different countries. Think about that, 150 different countries. This isn't just Central America or South America or even Cuba. 150 different countries, and we don't even know who they are. Those are the numbers. So when the administration tells you they're securing the border, those are the facts. Those are the numbers. And then the other thing is they say, well, okay, we're securing the border, and we could do a better job, but you've got to pass a law. You've got to give us another law somehow or some tool to do it. Well, let's talk about that for just a minute. We authorized and appropriated funding for a barrier, for a wall. It is partially built, and the money is sitting there, and the wall parts, the technology, all the things, they're just sitting there. They're not even using the money or the inventory they have to build the wall. So they're not building the wall. They're not providing adequate resources in terms of personnel or equipment to secure the border. That's number one. They have the funding, they have the authorization to do it, they're not doing it. It is a conscious choice on the part of the administration not to do that. And then let's talk about the laws. They seem to say, oh, they need some laws somehow to secure the border. The Remain in Mexico policy, the Third Safe Country policy, Public Order 42, they're doing everything they can to not enforce those tools. But as Senator Johnson just showed you, when those tools were enforced, in essence, we had control of the border, we had operation control of the border, and we stopped the illegal immigration. So there's only one conclusion here. This administration wants an open border. That's exactly what they want, and that's exactly what we have. And it even goes along with defunding the police and sanctuary cities. But you can't have a secure country without a secure border. Border security is national security, and it's affecting every American, and every American needs to tell the Biden administration, this has to change. This has to stop. Enforce the law. Secure the border. And also I was asked by the press team, they want to, well, it was 3, now he's down to 2, but I'm going to turn it back to Cruz and Cornyn for the questions.
We're going to start with our friends over here at KPRC. Go ahead.
Let me just, before we take the question, point out these firearms which have been secured by Customs and Border Protection heading south. We've been talking about what has come across the border heading north, but this is an example of the sort of trafficking in firearms that are used by the cartels to commit crimes of violence and further their drug smuggling operations. And please come up and take a look at them. Yes, sir.
Senator, Texas Military Department today announced that a soldier on Operation Lone Star died not while they were on the mission, but they were assigned to the mission. Other soldiers have died as part of the mission as well while they were down here on the border. What are your concerns as somebody who supports Operation Lone Star? What are your concerns about the losses that have occurred as a result?
Well, we're grateful to the Texas National Guard and the Department of Public Safety for filling the void left by the federal government's failure to enforce federal law. It's just that simple. This is a dangerous, difficult mission, no doubt. We know that Border Patrol agents put themselves in harm's way on a daily basis, and that it is a dangerous mission. But again, I appreciate the fact that Governor Abbott has taken this seriously and that our National Guard have answered the call. This is not really what the National Guard is trained for, to be a Border Patrol agent. And obviously it's a challenging one because they're having to deal with everything from water rescues to other dangerous situations. But again, the reason for the problems that are being incurred by both Texas National Guard, the Department of Public Safety, and others is because they don't have the complete range of authorities that the federal government has. And so they're doing the best they can. I think they ought to be applauded and thanked from the bottom of our heart.
KGNS over here has the last one.
You want to?
So aside from calling attention to the situation, what can you do with the resources available to you to actually fix the problem?
Well, there's an enormous amount we can do to fix this problem. We know how to solve it. In 2020, the last year of the Trump presidency, we had the lowest rate of illegal immigration in 45 years. We saw what worked. The first week of the Biden presidency, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris made 3 political decisions that caused this crisis. Number one, they immediately halted construction of the border wall, literally ordered workers to drop their tools and equipment and leave partially constructed wall exactly where it stands. Number two, they reinstated the disastrous catch and release policy. So now, over and over again, dangerous traffickers are caught, they're given a court date sometime in the future, they're released, and wonder of wonder, they never show up. And 3, most indefensibly, they ended the incredibly successful Remain in Mexico agreement. Remain in Mexico was an agreement President Trump had negotiated with the government of Mexico that said that anyone who crossed illegally into Mexico, typically from Central or South America, would remain in Mexico while their asylum case was proceeding. And it worked incredibly well. We saw illegal rates of immigration plummet. Joe Biden, his first week in office, ripped to pieces that incredibly successful international agreement. This is not an accident. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris campaigned promising open borders. You remember that moment in the Democratic presidential debate when all the Democrat candidates for president were asked, how many of you would give free health care to every illegal alien in America? And they happily raised their hands. There's a reason on the chart that Ron Johnson held up that the numbers spiked the instant Joe Biden became president. It didn't even take a delay. This is deliberate. It is willful. It is the outcome they want. They could fix it tomorrow. They don't want to. So you ask, what is the solution? I believe the solution, I think November is going to be a red tidal wave. I think South Texas is going to turn red in November. I think the people of South Texas who see the hospitals full, who see the prisons full, who see the schools overflowing, who see the children who've been assaulted. You know, Joni talked about something we saw last night. We were standing by the shores of the Rio Grande. We were shown a patch of grass where just days earlier, 2 little girls, aged 5 and 6, had been violently raped. If you're a parent, imagine that. Border Patrol agents had to care for these girls who were understandably in very, very bad shape. That is the predictable result of this decision. I think the people of South Texas, I'll tell you, last time we were here, we did a roundtable where law enforcement, frustrated out of their mind, I remember an elected Democrat from down in South Texas looked at the roundtable and said, you know what, if my party is the party of open borders, I can't support that. I think we're going to see South Texas turn red because nobody can see this chaos and suffering and misery and defend it. I'll make a prediction to you, if and when that happens. If we see a Republican Congress come January, I believe Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas will be impeached. And if and when that happens, the Senate will conduct a trial, and I think that trial needs to put these facts before the American people. If the president wants to hide from it, if the corporate media wants to ignore it, we need to have a trial on the floor of the Senate. where every one of the bodies, every one of the 100,000 people who overdosed in this past year from the fentanyl crisis hitting this country. We need to have a trial on a cabinet member who, at the orders of the president, is deliberately refusing to enforce the law and is endangering Americans across this nation. We need to follow the law, and we need to keep our community safe.
Thank you.
Thank you, we appreciate you. Senators, if I can get you over here.
Oh, you are? Okay, good.
Yeah, we're going to sprint you as fast as possible.